This episode sponsored by HotButteredPopcorn.com.
Half in the bag.
Now these assholes gotta fix my TV.
You know, Jay, I can't believe that Mr. Plinkett outsmarted us.
Maybe he has the opposite of senility, where he's actually getting smarter as he gets older.
That's a bit far-fetched.
Yeah.
Maybe he's been aware of what we've been doing this whole time. Like he's got some kind of weirdo fetish for fucking around with people's minds. It helps him maintain his constant erection.
Oh my god, I don't want to think about that. In fact, this entire situation has made me want to just get away from reality for a little bit. Maybe we should go see a couple movies.
It's not a bad idea. Movies are often an escape from reality. In fact, they're playing 2 new fairy tale movies right now.
Fairy tale movies? Aren't those aimed at little girls?
Not anymore. Now they're aimed at fat, bearded guys that love violence.
Me and my sister, we have a past. We almost died at the hands of a witch. But that past made us stronger. We'd gotten a taste of blood, witch blood.
Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters is a modern twist on the classic fairy tale about a brother and sister that escape the clutches of an evil witch by burning her alive. In this new version, Hansel and Gretel grow up to become blandly attractive drifters that burn witches alive somewhat frequently. When a small town's children are captured by witches, they hire Hansel and Gretel to do just that. But along the way, they discover secrets about their pasts, and then some people explode, and then rock music plays over the end credits. Before we start talking about the movie, Mike, why did we see this? This is sort of the tail end of its theatrical run, and we're just now seeing it.
We decided to watch the new Jack and the Beanstalk movie, whatever it's called, and we've been noticing a trend in Hollywood to make updated versions of fairy tales, children's classic stories,
Yes.
with guns in them, and people being murdered. So we saw Hansel and Gretel was still out in theaters, and for perspective, we decided to also watch Hansel and Gretel.
Yes.
To kind of compare and contrast and sort of get a little bit of a bigger take on the whole trend that's going on now.
And try and figure it out, because it's a weird trend.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, what did you think of the movie, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters?
I would say if the movie were a line graph on likability, it kind of went like this. I was not interested at all in the beginning. It started to win me over a little because of the twist on it, the violence, and kind of some of the humor. It had sort of an Army of Darkness, Evil Dead thing going on, just very, very mildly.
I liked it. I almost feel like a dipshit saying this, but it's one of the more entertaining movies I've seen recently. Because I didn't know anything about this movie before going in, other than the title. And of course I was thinking of Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunters, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be another one of those type of movies where they play it too straight for no good reason. But this movie is dumb trash, and it knows it, and no one seems to really be caring much. It's just a bunch of people kind of goofing around. The movie's goofy.
Yeah,
and
see,
I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think they wanted to go for the trashy kind of approach, but didn't quite push it far enough.
It's weird because for a mainstream like big kind of Hollywood release, it's really weird. But if you're someone that's seen a lot of B movies and cult films and stuff like that, it's a little too bland. It kind of falls right in the middle.
Exactly.
But considering I was expecting just complete generic crap, I was surprised.
That's what made me disappointed in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, because that took itself way too seriously. You know, it's called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Right.
It needs to be schlock. This one didn't take itself seriously, but it had the look and feel of like a WB supernatural type of TV show, that kind of budget level. Look to it?
Somewhat. I thought there was some of the action stuff and some of the sequences had more sort of energy to them.
Oh, sure.
There's I don't know if it was an intentional Sam Raimi influence, but yeah, like you mentioned, Army of Darkness, right off the bat, when you see the first witch, it looked like the she-bitch from Army of Darkness.
You shall die!
like the same thing and the same sort of hammy performance. And so I was like, okay, I can tolerate this.
Yeah, I just mean like the production values of it. The little old English town.
Yeah, see, that didn't bother me either, because again, thinking of Army of Darkness, it's like that movie looks cheap, and it's doesn't even try to take itself seriously.
Yeah,
so.
our Army of Darkness, though, had more, I guess the best word would be style.
Oh, sure.
Where Ash is a unique character, and it's all in the performance, and it all almost feels like the whole movie's ad-libbed, where he's just saying like bizarre things, and it's completely off the level of realism.
The best part of Army of Darkness is there's one shot where Ash is during the big battle scene at the end where there's like one skeleton after another coming up to him, and it looks like people just throwing dummies at him. I'm just picturing Sam Raimi like, he's like, all right, he's not telling Bruce Campbell what he's doing. All right, action, and they just throw things at him.
Yeah.
And this is missing that. It feels more produced, which makes it a little more bland. But
The fact that they have a pretty solid script as far as just by solid I mean predictable. Army of Darkness really didn't have that. It was all over the map, and Ash is yelling things and saying silly one-liners, and this it didn't need to take itself so seriously, but and which I think was the only real detriment to the movie, because there was that and tone issues, which I can see people being confused by the movie.
yeah, it didn't feel reckless enough.
Right.
It was getting there. It was close in parts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's funny you mentioned the script, and I was thinking about it like towards the end of the movie. It was like, this is the type of movie where really the plot doesn't matter, but it's one of the more tightly plotted movies I've seen recently, and it really didn't need to be, as far as like being very coherent in a way that a lot of recent sort of action movies aren't.
How do you best kill a witch? Cutting off her head tends to work.
Hate that one.
It reminded me of like a 90s fantasy movie, mainly because, which is something we should mention, is there is a troll in the movie.
Oh, that was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, and it's not a CGI troll, which was bizarre. It was a guy in a rubber costume who looked like a cross between the rock monster in Neverending Story and a Dick Tracy villain.
Oh, sure, I can see that. I was thinking of like the Jim Henson projects from the 80s, like Labyrinth and that type of thing.
Sure, that too. So rubber suit.
It was glorious. It's a big rubber suit with an animatronic face.
But the production values also reminded me of something on par with like the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Yes, Gretel, we have to get that witch. Yes, she's a deadly witch, a lead witch or something. Okay, thanks.
I don't understand.
I was phoning in my performance for Hansel and Gretel, just like Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, we should talk about the performances in the movie. What this really lacked, we keep comparing it to Army of Darkness, I guess. That's sort of the movie I kept being reminded of during it. What it lacked was a Bruce Campbell type, a smartass that is almost doing everything in the movie ironically as an actor.
Yes.
And Jeremy Renner just looks like he doesn't want to be there. The girl, I'm not familiar with her. She was a little better, but
I've seen her in a JCPenney catalog.
Oh, okay.
Modeling clothing.
Yeah.
She was a flatline. Jeremy Renner was a flatline. I mean, they gave it their half.
They treated it like a real movie, and that's not the way to do it.
I don't think we're hunting witches. There's something else going on here.
We have to find those kids.
Kudos to Famke Janssen, though. Famke Janssen is just chewing the scenery in this, and she's the appropriate level of intentionally bad that a movie like this needs.
Yeah, she stands out in the movie as something memorable. The Hansel and Gretel characters do not stand out at all, and unfortunately there are leads.
Yeah, she didn't reach Jeremy Irons levels.
No.
But...
Destiny!
Jeremy Irons' performance in Dungeons & Dragons is the perfect I know I'm in a terrible movie, and I'm going to see what I can get away with performance. And this movie could have used some of those.
Yeah. And I feel sorry for poor Famke Janssen. You know, they say, Famke Janssen, would you like to play a witch? We feel that your face now looks like a witch when we apply witch makeup to it. I'm trying to say this as tactfully as possible. And then she goes, oh, whatever, how much money do I get? I'm sorry, there are no more roles for women in Hollywood that are over 40.
They play witches.
You got Julia Roberts, who was the queen, evil queen in Mirror Mirror. Charlize Theron was also in a Snow White thing, Snow White and the Huntsman.
Angelina Jolie is going to play the evil queen in the Sleeping Beauty reboot.
So watch out, Kristen Stewart and Anne Hathaway and all you young ladies.
You're all going to end up witches.
Let's start with this. Shoot anything that moves.
I see you got my invitation.
I have my sister.
So would you recommend, it's pretty much out of theaters at this point, but would you recommend it?
Yeah, I would recommend it. I would. It's a fun watch. You can't. I mean, our job is to overthink it. I don't think most people will. They'll watch it and laugh and go, "Hey, this is kind of fun."
And there's lots of fun witches at the end too. There's like a gathering of witches, and there's one with no legs. The fucking Hansel throws off a cliff and then shoots while he's falling.
Yeah,
that was fun.
There
the
was
Siamese twin.
Yeah, which was disgusting.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. They were attached by their backs, so they had their backs to each other, and then at one point they get chopped kind of in half.
Yeah, where you can see the gross flesh ripping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish they didn't rush through that scene. I wish it was a little more, they slowed it down a little and didn't focus quite so much on the aftermath of that. Because they go back to the candy house at the end, and it's like, we've brought things full circle. She actually says what the screenwriter was thinking. He's like, hey, I'm gonna bring the script full circle. And it'll bookend the whole movie. And then Famke Janssen's character goes, we've brought the script full circle.
She actually says, we've brought the script.
Yeah.
She says that line in the movie.
Yeah, and the writer's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
To see additional material from this episode of Half in the Bag, visit hotbutteredpopcorn.com/RedLetterMedia.
Giants!
Jack the Giant Slayer is the new action-packed film which is based on the old folklore Jack and the Beanstalk. The movie stars Nicholas Hoult as Jack and Ewan McGregor as a knight or something. Like other films in this current Hollywood trend, Jack the Giant Slayer takes a simple fairy tale and injects it with violent steroids and special effects. We saw this film in a theater where it was projected on a screen. Jay, what did you think of Jack and the Beanstalk Slayer?
There's probably a really enjoyable little fantasy adventure buried in that movie somewhere. The movie is very okay. On the grand scheme of things, if you look at the movie overall, it felt very generic and very just a part of this trend of taking these simple fairy tales and making them bigger and more action-packed. And this falls right in line with that. Some of the details, like the Ewan McGregor character, I didn't think was played out as he wasn't like a smug asshole or like the way that type of character would be played in another movie. He's likable. Jack kind of takes a step back from the action a lot, as opposed to just constantly trying to prove himself.
Yeah.
So there's nice little touches like that, but overall, I thought it was just too bloated.
See, now, I think I'm totally disagreeing with you on this
Oh
one.
my God.
I think this was one of the better films I've seen this year. Maybe my favorite so far.
Oh my lord.
I don't remember what else I've watched this year. What else have I watched this year?
Oh, A Haunted House.
It's a close call on that
Yeah.
one. No, I really, really liked this movie. At the time I watched it, I just did not give a flying fuck about Jack and the Beanstalk movie. Seriously.
Sure.
And so the movie won me over completely. I liked the fact that it was a Hollywood cash in on a fairy tale. We're going to take a fairy tale. What have people heard of? What titles? Blah, 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 blah. But I think Bryan Singer, I think he took the material and he elevated it, no pun intended, and made it work in a classic way. It reminded me a lot of like Star Wars almost, like a traditional hero's journey movie.
Yeah.
Which wasn't bogged down in Twilight crap like Jack and like when we saw Spider-Man, like okay, they're doing a dark thing.
Yeah.
We're meant to be together. It retained all the fairy tale elements it needed to have. The tone of it was pretty perfect. In terms of how the characters all played the roles.
Yeah.
Some of the costumes too, like the king costume was like, it was a little goofy, but it worked as a fairy tale king costume.
Yeah.
It wasn't like trying to be, a dark Ridley Scott, a Robin Hood remake,
Right.
where it was a fairy tale movie.
Yeah.
And it worked perfectly as that. Jack was the quintessential protagonist. He goes on this adventure. He's trying to win over the princess, and like you said, it wasn't Jack the Giant Slayer in the way Hansel and Gretel were Hansel and Gretel witch hunters.
Right.
He wasn't like. It didn't do that.
Home to a fearsome giant race who hunger to conquer the mortals below.
What?
Waiting for the seeds of revenge to grow.
Have we faded into legend?
It's funny you mentioned Star Wars. I was kind of thinking of like Ray Harryhausen type movies. That's what this reminded me of a lot of tonally for most of it. There's parts where I wasn't sure, like they kept cutting away, like they were about to like rip a guy's head off or about to eat him, and they would awkwardly cut away, and I was like, did they do that? Did they cut that? Was they shoot it that way, or was that something they had to do in editing to lessen the rating? Because it's not a very hard PG-13, but stuff like that happened where I was just like, it's kind of harsh for this very light movie. And then you've got the troll like eating his boogers, and one of them farts.
Yeah.
And it's like every troll in every movie now has to eat boogers and fart. I thought that was weird, but overall I liked the trolls.
Your Highness.
I think we both agree on the ending.
Well, this is really what kind of killed the movie for me. Like, I didn't hate it. It is a watchable movie. The first half or so I really liked. What completely killed it for me was there's a certain point where the movie logically could have ended. And I knew it wasn't going to, because it's a modern day retelling of a fairy tale, and you have to have Lord of the Rings scale battles. So I knew it wasn't going to end at this particular moment. I wish it had. It would have been a nice sort of quaint, simple ending that would have been satisfying. But instead, we have to go on for another 45 minutes of this long battle action sequence, and I just didn't care about it at all.
There is an ending which feels like it's an ending of this movie, which could possibly lead into a sequel. It wasn't just the fact that it added to the running time. It felt like a natural conclusion of the movie.
Yeah.
Whenever a movie gets to a point where it feels like it's the natural conclusion, and you're like, and then there's more, then it always makes it feel like more of a chore after that.
That's what the last half of this movie felt like to me.
Yeah, it's like when you have a full meal and then the waiter comes by and goes, "Here's more food you have to eat." And you're like, "Oh, really? I thought it was done." So, but that it also diffused the the entire first part of the movie, which is, they have to obviously rescue the princess from the giant land because she goes up the beanstalk by herself. But the looming threat that the giants are going to get down to the planet is the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, if we're going to use a Star Wars comparison, it's like if the Death Star blew up Yavin, and then after that, there's something else that happens.
Yeah.
The looming threat is that the Death Star is going to blow up the planet that they're on.
Right.
You don't let that happen in the movie when that's the gigantic threat.
You can make a Venn diagram though with Ewan McGregor for this movie.
Oh yeah.
Because you have multiple actors from The Phantom Menace in this. You got Warwick Davis, the guy who played O'Reilly. What's his name?
Rick Oley. He was
Oley.
the pilot on the Naboo Starship Cruiser.
Yeah, you have him, and then you have Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
And then you have the guy that played Spud in Trainspotting, and Ewan McGregor in Trainspotting. So, bloop, there we go.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to bring up was I really liked the first appearance of the giants. There's a lot of setup before they show the giants, which is nice because it follows the movie rule of not showing a creature too soon in the film for fear of spoiling the whole movie.
You gotta dole out information gradually. That's what makes a movie interesting to watch.
They take a while to show the giants, and the first time they do, it's very reminiscent of like Jurassic Park. I remember the scene where the T-Rex appears. They don't show a T-Rex in the first 5 minutes of Jurassic Park. They sort of wait for that.
Yeah.
And the scene's very similar because it's raining and there's water involved, and you hear like, and so it's a nice build-up and reveal of the creature, which I thought was nice, and you don't see that too much anymore. But the trolls looked good, and it's funny because we just watched Hansel and Gretel before this, which had a rubber suit troll. But these are giants, though.
Whatever.
It's different.
They're
Trolls
all
are-
the same. They all fart and eat boogers in all these movies.
And they sound
And
like
they
old
all
British
sound
men.
like that.
But the giants looked really good, and it's a good comparison because the troll in Hansel and Gretel was perfect for what it needed to be.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be flashy, crazy CGI. It needed to be a rubber suit. This, you obviously can't make 19-foot-tall giants. So it's the perfect application of CGI, and it looks pretty good too. Plus, all the giants have their own unique look to them and their own personalities even. Even though it was distracting to me through the film because one giant in particular looks a lot like Wendy Winston from the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
Well, that would explain all the farting. So overall, would you recommend Jack and the Beanstalk Slayer?
I would wholeheartedly recommend it.
Okay.
It's a well-made movie, a classic fairy tale movie with steroids that works, where you can take a classic story like Jack and the Beanstalk and make it into a big bloated action movie, and it actually works. It elevated the material, and it's a classic hero's journey type movie, like a Star Wars or a movie like that, without the eye-rolling Twilight romance shits, or without trying to be too dark, or without trying to have too much kung fu in it and action and explosions, and there is all that stuff, but it's perfectly balanced in my opinion.
Perfectly balanced?
Well, except for the bloated ending.
Yeah,
Except
that's what completely, because it completely deflated the conclusion of the story for me, that ending, and it was just like mind-numbing to watch, and it really. So I would recommend the movie, but maybe when you see there's like 45 minutes left, just leave.
Well, Jay, after just watching Hansel and Gretel and Jack the Giant Slayer, let's talk a little bit about where movies come from. There's two types of movies. One is an original idea, and two is a ripoff of that idea.
Oh, original ideas, I remember those.
It seems ages ago. Well, there's movies that come out, and we'll call them watershed movies. They're usually movies that make a ton of money. They're usually an original idea, and everyone wants to make a movie just like it. Some movies like this, for example, would be like Star Wars, Pulp Fiction, The Matrix, which started off a craze of hip action movies with bullet time and speed up, slow down kind of stuff.
The Blair Witch Project, that's kind of started found footage movies, which is still going.
A more recent example would be the Harry Potter movies. Obviously, the first Harry Potter movie was a huge success, and that was based on a series of books aimed at young adults. They were sort of fantasy books. So that began the Hollywood orgy of what do we got? Let's look for books that young adults read that we could make Harry Potter-esque movies out of.
Yeah, especially looking for ones that were already a series of books, because then you can make more movies.
Yeah, so one of the big ones that they started off with was the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is, of course, the C.S. Lewis novels. And I think there was a sequel called The Golden Compass. But there certainly were a lot of other Harry Potter knockoff movies.
What might those be?
Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Nanny McPhee.
Aragon.
Bridge to Terabithia.
Inkheart.
What?
What?
The Spiderwick Chronicles. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. The Lightning Thief. What?
So those are all good, clear-cut examples of movies that came out based on the success of Harry Potter. Can very easily be traced back to that movie.
Yes.
But now, after a period of zombie movies and superhero movies, the current trend in Hollywood seems to be making darker versions of fairy tales and big, dumb action movies based on classic literature or just on title recognition alone.
Yeah.
So, Jay, where do all these goddamn fairy tale and action movies come from?
Well, unlike Bridge to Terabithia and movies such as that, it's hard to pinpoint it back to one specific movie. It sort of seems to be a few different things that have inspired this, that have somehow worked their way into fairy tales. One of the examples would be something like Twilight, where you have sort of a supernatural element, a monster horror element, so that lends itself well to certain fairy tale stuff. You have like Red Riding Hood with Amanda Seyfried, from the director of Twilight. Snow White and the Huntsman, which stars Kristen Stewart from Twilight. There's also the film Beastly, which is Beauty and the Beast for the Twilight crowd. And there's also a new series on the CW called Beauty and the Beast, which is Beauty and the Beast for the Twilight crowd.
But then we have another trend which kind of commingles with the other trend, and it's big dumb action movies based on classic literature or title recognition, which oftentimes includes fairy tales as well. Fairy tale stories that are done in an action movie style and don't necessarily have a teen romance inspired by Twilight.
Right.
Is everyone following along?
Yeah, Snow White and the Huntsman would probably cross over into this category as well.
Yeah. But first up would be Hansel and Gretel, of course. Not a romance movie, but a big, dumb, violent action movie from a fairy tale. We also have Sherlock Holmes that came out recently, which is, of course, based on the stories of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but done in a gigantic, dumb Michael Bay action movie style.
Well, and they also brought back Robin Hood again.
Yes, but this time it was dark Robin Hood.
Of course.
There was lots of violence and dark moments in it. It wasn't the traditional Robin Hood and his merry men kind of fairy tale story. It was an action movie, a war movie kind of. It was very, very strange.
Well, there's also Alice in Wonderland, directed by Tim Burton, which inexplicably ends with a Lord of the Rings style battle sequence.
You know why?
Why?
Because why not? Alice in Wonderland, the original ending was what, she woke up?
Yeah. And coming out soon, we have Oz the Great and Powerful, which adds that element that I thought the original Wizard of Oz was missing, which is giant fight scenes.
Yeah, if you look back at it now, the original Wizard of Oz is kind of boring. It's just a lot of music and story and adventure and great costumes and sets. I mean, yeah, it has all that crap, but it doesn't have a giant battle at the end. And really, that's what we need. We need a giant battle. I mean, the witch had her flying monkeys, you know, and they came after them. But did they launch flaming rocks at them? Did they explode the Emerald City? Did the Emerald City blow up? No! Well, speaking of director Bryan Singer, who did the X-Men movies, and they made that X-Men First Class movie, and Nicholas Hoult, who was in the Beanstalk movie, was the young Beast in X-Men First Class.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And you know who else was in that? Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, yeah, she played Mystique in that. I wonder if they'd be able to get her back for the sequel now that she's won an Academy Award.
Probably not. I doubt she would go back to a small role like that. It could only trip up her career.
Too soon. Oh, fuck!